Well, the press has spent months searching for a Russia scandal, but in an odd twist, the scandal could be one they've had all along, or for a number of years anyway. 2010, the Obama administration approved a deal giving a Russian firm control over 20% of the American uranium reserves. It wasn't very widely noted at the time. It's turned out to be a big deal. President Trump today blasted the press for ignoring what he says is the real scandal. Watch.
If the mainstream media would cover the uranium scandal and that Russia has 20% of our uranium for whatever reason, and a lot of people understand what those reasons may be, I think that's your Russia story. That's your real Russia story, not a story where they talk about collusion and there was none. It was a hoax. The problem is that the mainstream media does not want to cover that story, because that affects people that they protect. And it's a disgrace that the fake news won't cover it.
David DeFurry is a former State Department official. He advises the Obama campaign, advised on foreign policy, and he joins us tonight. David, I'm almost sorry we played that bite, because it might give viewers the impression that this is an inherently political story. There are politics around it, but I'm interested in the policy just as an American, not as someone with political views. Why is it okay that the Obama administration approved the sale of a company that controls 20% of America's uranium reserves to the Russians, now described as our mortal enemy? Why did they do that?
Well, you're right. It's a policy issue and also a legal issue. Now, this happened in 2010. One thing I disagree with you about is it was widely known then. In fact, there were Republican members of Congress who wrote to the administration to argue that they should not approve of this. Now, we have a CFIUS process. That process has to happen any time a company is going to acquire a company that might impact our national security.
Exactly.
Most countries don't have that process. It's good that we have that process that helps us protect our national security. This deal went through that process. It's a really complex process. 12 agencies of the U.S. government are involved. 9 agency heads make the final decision. Secretary Clinton, Secretary of State at the time, was one of 9 who approved of that decision. I believe that was a bad policy decision back then, but that was 2010. Right now, it's quite different. The situation with Russia is much more extreme, and Russia poses a much more significant threat to our security.
May or may not be true, but for the sake of the debate, I will concede your point and say that Russia is a greater threat than in the past. I don't believe that, but I know that you do. Given that, how horrifying must it be for you to read what's happened to that uranium that the Obama administration allowed the Russians to control? You have in the New York Times a Wyoming landowner on whose land some of these uranium deposits sit, saying, I'm watching trucks come into my property, routinely pack uranium into drums, and truck off to a processing plant abroad. Uranium One, this company has no export license to take that uranium out of this country. It's winding up off this continent. You know exactly where it's going, to places that are dangerous to the United States. And that's all because the Obama administration, with Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State, allowed this to happen. Why isn't that considered shameful?
Well, you're right. We have to be concerned about the export of uranium, but I think you've overstated.
Concerned? How about terrified?
You've overstated what the New York Times article says.
Well,
it says it states that there was one export of uranium. It went to Canada, and by the way,
I'm reading it right here. I'm sorry. Let me just correct it as a factual matter. I'm quoting now. A uranium spokeswoman, Donna Wickers, said that 25% had gone to Western Europe and Japan. So we know that 25% of this uranium we don't actually have any proof that it went to Western Europe and Japan. We know it left the continent. We don't know if it went to Iran or North Korea or from, where it moved on from there. We've lost control of it. That's the point.
No,
the Russians.
That you're wrong about. So first of all,
I'm right about
Western Europe and Japan are our allies. Uranium does not leave the United States without getting a export license from the
they have
Nuclear
no
Regulatory Commission.
False. No. They have no export license. That's the whole point of the story. They don't have an export license.
Okay. We could argue about this story.
But we couldn't argue because I'm correct.
The more important point of the story is how this deal got approved. Now, with respect to the export of uranium, I haven't heard anyone say that it made it to anywhere improper. In one place,
that's not true.
In one situation, it went to Canada, and it was the trucking company that had the export license. And it's important for you to understand.
There is no export license to take this uranium out of this country, but we don't don't control it, the Russians do, because the Obama people and Hillary Clinton allowed this to happen. And if you think the Russia scandal is indeed a scandal, and you do, and you've argued it here, then how is this not a scandal of a much grander magnitude? This is a huge deal that threatens our national security, but nobody seems to care because it's Obama and Clinton.
But
let's be real.
But then if this is a scandal, it's a scandal for the Trump administration, because that means the Trump administration, during the Trump administration, this uranium is leaving the country without having proper licenses.
They ought to shut this down right now. I couldn't agree with you more.
So that you should be arguing against the Trump administration.
I'm arguing that anybody who's allowing this is in the wrong, and it's a threat to us. But the genesis of this, and it's ongoing to this day, is this deal. Now, the Clintons took, through their foundations, over $100 million from investors in this uranium company. How is that not quid pro quo? I don't understand. It's a deal that you yourself say was a bad deal. They approved it. The Clintons took over $100 million during that period. Why is that not an actual scandal, not a nonsense DC scandal?
Let's break that down. The Clintons did not take $100 million. $100 million went in charitable donations to the Clinton Foundation. And the Clinton Foundation used that money for charitable purposes.
We don't know what they used it for. That's not true.
We have their tax returns.
No, actually, we don't.
I've actually reviewed their tax returns.
Okay. I've seen their tax returns too, but to say it went to charitable endeavors, the point is they control it. It went to their foundations. And why do you think by the way, why do you think investors in a uranium company would be giving $145 million to the Clintons? Honestly, no. Let's stop.
These are American, Canadian, and Russians who were involved somehow in the deal. I agree with you.
They care about childhood obesity.
I agree with you. I agree with you that it is dubious. Although I don't agree that just giving money to a charity somehow influenced the Clintons.
Just saying. Let's stop pretending. They're not giving the money because they care about childhood obesity or cholera. They're giving because they want the deal to go through. You know that.
Well, I don't think it's fair for you to say that Bill and Hillary Clinton don't care about some of the charitable purposes that money went to. But the more concerning issue is that Bill Clinton took speaker fees from a Russian investment firm that was also involved in this deal in 2010, near the time that this was
agree.
And that is more significant. But the question is, did Bill influence Hillary, and did Hillary influence the CFIUS committee, and did she somehow influence the other 8 people? And there's no evidence of that.
Everything about it, from the policy to the payoffs, is sleazy and wrong, and you're basically admitting that, and I appreciate it.
The policy is bad. Right. There's nothing illegal. There's no evidence of illegal activity.
Bring us back.
Yes.
David DeVore, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.